Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Johnson, and welcome to our live. We are live here from the range in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. If you don't know who I am, I'm a firearms trainer in Cape Coral, Florida, and we teach people to shoot. We specialize in you. We specialize in the first time shooter. We opened this YouTube channel many years ago to motivate, educate, and entertain, and I hope that we do that this evening. We've had a great week so far. It's only Tuesday, but I hope you have been having a great week. We had we did a couple different things this week that we normally don't get to do. We had one of our subscribers that from were Jim and Patty from Vermont. They went to Orlando over the weekend or next couple of days, and they came down all the way about 3 hours, 3.5 hours to come see us. So I want to show you a picture of us. I am working on the video at this point in time, but we haven't had an opportunity. This is a little snippet of the video. Jim was looking at the wrong camera. Patty got to shoot. Jim was looking at, we had two cameras set up, one for the target and one for there, and Jim was looking the opposite way. But that's okay. We had a great time. Jim got to shoot. Patty got to shoot. They got to watch a class with us as well. Young lady came in and wanted to do a training class with us, and I asked her if Patty and Jim could tag along and watch, and they learned a little bit there. Both of them are new to shooting. Patty did really wonderful. Jim did great, and we want to thank them very much for coming down and spending some of their vacation time in a car to come down and see us, and we were really, really happy about that. So, thank you, Jim and Patty from Vermont, for coming down here and seeing us. We really appreciate you very much. Now, if you want to come down and see us, we'd love to have you too. We can set something up. You can do a training class with us anytime you'd like. We're always available for you. Jim and Patty were not expecting to shoot, but we gave them a little special treatment there due to the fact that they were physically down here and they made a special trip to see us. We actually set some time aside to give them a little bit of. They got to see the studio. We call it the studio. It's a wall with the back wall here, and they got to see the range studio as well, and they got to watch us do a little training class and everything else like that. It was kind of cool. We liked it very much. So if you get an opportunity, you want to come down and see us, you can always send us a message and let us know you're coming, and we'll make sure we're available for you. Maybe even set something up special for you like we did Jim and Patty. Jim and Patty, I hope you have a wonderful time in Disney World. Thank you very much from the bottom of the Johnson's hearts. We appreciate you very much. All right, so this week we had a couple different things that went on. Last week we got one of our subscribers having a little problem with shooting a pistol. He was shooting his weapon left and high. It's very uncommon to shoot a weapon high, so I did a special video for him. And here's a picture of that thumbnail. We just did it for him, and he said, "I'm a right-handed shooter and right-eyed strong. Lately, I've been pulling my shots up and to the left, and I broke down what I thought was his main problems, and I sent this directly to him as well as did a video for anybody else to watch. And there are a couple different things that I told him that he would want to work on. And number one is we've talked many times before in regards to making sure that we're not aiming in the center of the target. If we're aiming in the center of the target, remember those sights are above the barrel and you're going to impact a little higher than you normally would. And then get that proper grip. And I told him about grip and stance and a bunch of different stuff. And I gave him some ideas. And hopefully he'll take this to the range and be able to um, improve his accuracy. And I hope he sends this back to us and lets us know how he did. Guys, if you're having problems at the range, that's what we're here for. Please send us something like this guy did. He went in one of my videos. He talked about how he was running into a problem and didn't expect us to help him, but we want to help you. We want to send these videos out because if you're having the problem, ladies and gentlemen, someone else is too. So don't be shy about it. Send it to us. I can't promise you I'm going to make a video on every one we do, but when I see one like this that will help many, many students. And it takes me 6 to 8 minutes of video time, as well as probably an hour to scrub it all together and all that stuff like that. But that's why we do it. We want to educate, motivate, and entertain you. And this YouTube thing is why we do it so much. This is kind of one of those things that we love to do. Now, I told you last week that there's been a big change in YouTube. YouTube themselves is starting a a, a, a podcast as well. So we actually are changing our structure that every Tuesday night we're still going to be live, but after the fact, all of these videos you're seeing here will be pushed to a podcast as well. Most people don't realize a podcast is audio only mostly. YouTube is doing it differently because they're doing video and audio as a podcast. Now, I like that. I like the concept of it. But, we want to be available for you any way you want to consume our product. We want to have it available for you. So now we are on the iHeart, and we're on all the channels that you want to get your how you ever get your podcast and you want to see it. All you gotta do is look up John the Firearms Trainer, and I will be there. If you find one I'm not in, let me know, and we'll make sure we get there. But the YouTube, iHeart, uh, Shopify, all the major ones that are out there, the Googles and all that stuff, we should be on their um, podcast list. So we would love to actually get you guys over there as well. Maybe download some of these episodes and things like that. Things you want to take to the range, maybe listen to it with your iPods in, your buds in while you're at the range to help you focus on working on your accuracy or something like that. All right. Cool, cool. So we have a good group already this today. We got 12, 13 that have just popped up. So let's talk about those 13 people that we're on here at this point in time. Do me a favor, comment below. Let me know where you are. Let me know where you're from. If you're new, let me know you're new. If you're watching it through our YouTube channel, will you put YT on there? And if you're watching it on one of our Facebook platforms, make sure you put FB on there as well. And then let me know if it's your first time or not your first time. We're not going to check comments every 5 seconds here, but we'll wait for a little bit. There's one comment there already. But let me know where you're from. And if you have an opportunity and you find some value tonight, please don't forget to hit the bell icon, the like, and the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, make sure if you're watching it through Facebook or anything, hit that like button. And then make sure that you are one of our followers, subscribers, or whatever you want to call yourself there. We would love to. We do these things for you guys on a regular basis, so we appreciate you very much. We got a great one tonight. Last week we had a pretty much an overview of how to shoot proper and all that stuff like that. So I took that one and I broke it down into an individual piece. And the one I broke down this week is 10 tips for a better grip. And the grip is so important when you get a firearm in your hand. There are so many different grips out there that I see people do on a regular basis that helps people and sometimes hurts people with their accuracy. And we want to walk through 10 of these things to make sure you got a proper grip. Now, I need to send special thank you to my baby boy, Jacob. You're going to see his hands all in this video. And Mr. Jacob does not want to be in front of the camera at all. But sometimes I can catch his hands in front of the camera. So thank you, baby boy. I love you very much. And I'm sorry your hands are gonna have to be in this video, but they don't want to see my hands. It's hard for me to take the picture and hold the weapon as well. So we've got a great little show here for you, and we're gonna get started. We got 4 comments. I'm gonna hit those real quick. Make sure people know that we appreciate them. Natasha, mom. Hello, Ralph from Brazil. Beautiful. Hey, Ralph, how you doing, buddy? Tom from New Hampshire. Thank you, YouTube. And Gary Clancy from Northwest Florida. on YouTube. Thank you, Gary. Glad you're here, guys. Enjoy the show. If you have any comments tonight, keep looking at it. If I say something you don't understand, pop them in there as well. Hey, Chris, welcome back, buddy. Oh, here we go. The Super Bowl champions. Chris, I know, buddy. I know. He's a Kansas City Chiefs guy. But we're glad you're on. Glad you're on, Chris. Thank you very much. All right, so let's go ahead and pop up the PowerPoint presentation. Let's see if we can get this up and maybe put me on the side. I kind of like this one better. There we go. How's that? Or do I need to be on there at all? I don't know if I need to be on there. I'm gonna take me off there, so I can go full screen. Hit full screen. There we go. Tips for improving your handgun grip by yours truly, John Johnson, the firearms trainer. And this is going to be a list of things I think you guys can do very quickly to boost or improve your accuracy. One of the most important things people don't think about is, shooting is not complicated, it's complex, but it all starts somewhere and it has to start either at your stance or it starts at your grip. And I if I'm going to lay it out as far as priorities, I think the grip is very important. I think it's more important than a lot of other stuff. But you can get yourself in a point where you're going to over torque with your hands a lot. So each one of these has their special place in here. And I would highly recommend that you pay attention of what you think your grip is. I want you to think about this before you start watching this and remember the proper grip is something that we're going to show you, but you need to let me know what your grip looks like if you can. So let's go ahead to the first page. Here we are. All right. Let's identify your grip. Check out these, right? So the very first one there is Mr. Jacobs got two thumbs crossed, but he has his non-dominant hand thumb crossed over his dominant hand thumb. Now the challenge of this, and this is shot an awful lot by a lot of people. Where do you think the challenge is here? I can tell you if you look at the first picture and the last picture, and which one of those two grips do you think is going to give you more skin around the pistol? If you're looking at the fourth screen and seeing Jacob's two thumbs on top of each other, you are covering 360 degrees of skin on that firearm. If you look at picture one, your left hand, Jacob's left hand, is being blocked by touching the gun by the right hand. It's being pushed off. And how much power and strength are you going to be able to grab that weapon if it's being blocked off the pistol? So the proper grip on this is Jacob's fourth one there. His two thumbs on top of each other. He's high up on the tang of the gun. He's got his tip of his fingers off the trigger on the other side. He's got his index finger laying on the bottom of the trigger well. There is no gapping here at all. And when he goes to push this trigger and push this weapon out, he is going to be pressing with his chest muscles and he's going to slowly press the trigger. Now let's look at the two in the middle. The one on the one on the I guess I would looking at me, it would be the second one if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. The second one is called teacupping. Now, how much of that grip, how much of that left hand is going to help you control the recoil of that weapon? And pretty much, if you're saying none, you're probably right because what happens there is you are not helping that left hand hold on to that pistol at all. You're trying to over torque with your dominant hand. And with that dominant hand, what tends to happen with most people is they begin to shoot to the right because if you squeeze a firearm really tight with your right hand, the weapon's going to turn to the right. See, when you equal out, like on that fourth picture, when you equal out right and left together, you're going to get a more positive contact. The more positive contact will allow that gun to stay more equal. And then if you got the gun over your dominant eye and press the trigger, not pull the trigger, you're going to have better control. Muzzle flip is an easy thing to control once you've got a hold of the weapon properly. And then we know what three there is. Three is going to get you bit, right? That's thumb crossing thumb. Now I see this an awful lot, and I stop it a lot in the range as well. How much control does that left hand have on that weapon? Very little. How much bite is he going to get with that left thumb? He's going to get a big bite, right? Because when that slide comes back and hits that thumb, that's going to be terrible. Here's the challenge of that. If you really think about that, when I grab that weapon and I hold down closer to my arm with my left thumb, I would get away with it. And then I would do it again and maybe hold a little higher. And then I do it again and hold a little higher. And by the fourth time I did it, that that slide's going to come back and hit my thumb and maybe cut me. And you're going to be using some of my band-aids back there. And at that point in time, you're going to ask yourself, what the hell happened? I got away with it. I was shooting properly. Well, you didn't realize you had your thumb back there, or no one stopped you from having your thumb back there. And then as you slid your thumb higher and higher and higher on the actual hand itself, that's when you got snagged. That's when you got bit. And backside of those firearms being shot, that spring loaded product comes back and really cuts your hands pretty bad. So you never want to do two and three. There are guys who shoot thumb cross like that on number one and get away with it and shoot it okay. I always say guys can shittily hold the gun and shoot it okay. Most women can't, and most people who want to be accurate needs to control it more than anything else. But there's no muscles in our hands. We just got to be able to control the weapon, and the more skin you put around that pistol, the better it's going to be. So if you identify in any of these grips, if you identify one, two, or three as your grip, you got bad grip. If you're identifying number four as a grip that you use on a regular basis, congratulations. That's the proper grip. That's the proper grip. All right, let's go to the next one here. Top grip. Uh, Top 10 handgun tips to increase your accuracy is ensuring a firm grip on the gun with both hands, using your dominant hand to hold the gun and your non-dominant hand to support the gun. Here we go. There's Jacob's trigger finger off the trigger like a good boy, and he's got a good grip. If you look at his fingernails on his left hand, he's squeezing pretty hard at that point in time, and he's getting a good solid grip. If you look here, he's high on the backside of that tang. He's got that gun level, and he's really, really beginning to control it. He's got a good solid grip. He's not over torquing, but he's not under torquing, and he's got complete control of that weapon as much as he can. So this right here, what I would say would be a proper grip. Pay attention to it. This is something that's high. He's got a good grip. He's got his trigger finger off the trigger. But if you look at his left hand, he's got the trigger well resting on his his uh, his pointer finger on his left hand, and he's not grabbing that trigger well with his tip. A lot of guys want to take their trigger finger and wrap around that trigger well. A lot of people think the Glock itself is flat up there for a reason, but the more you put your finger out and try to grab that trigger well, the more you're going to cause manipulation of the pistol as well. So, firm grip, both hands, using your dominant hand to hold the gun and your non dominant hand to grip the gun is what we normally say. A lot of people get into the 60-40 and all that stuff like that. I'm not really into the 60-40 thing. I'm just telling you, squeeze harder with your non dominant hand and squeeze less with your dominant hand. And between the two of those together, you're going to even the gun out. If you just want to practice this one time, make sure the gun is empty at your home. Make sure there's no rounds in it. Double check, double check, double check. And then put the gun in your hand and just one handed hold on to the pistol really tight and squeeze. You'll watch it roll off to the right hand because you're right handed. And if you do the same with your left hand, you're going to roll off the same with your left hand. The left handed person is going to push it off the left. The right handed person is going to push it off the right if you're squeezing it hard with your dominant hand. Now, take your dominant hand, squeeze a little bit, and your non dominant hand and squeeze a lot. And that'll level that pistol out to allow it to stay level as you're shooting it. It's a control thing at that point. So number 1 is a firm grip. All right, let's do the next one. Yeah, positive. Position your hand high on the backstrap. This is one of those things we always tell students about. Make sure you're high up there. See with the arrow pointing at Jacob's back of his hand, and he's really high. With the picture down below, he's got a little bit of gap. Imagine that gap when you want to engage that trigger. Look what he did with his thumbs on that gap situation. See where his thumb's laying down? It's not on the slide at all. It's laying down itself. What's this going to do? It's going to allow that gun to muzzle flip a little bit due to the fact he's got a little bit of gap in there. The more he tightens that backside of that gap up, the less likely the gun's going to muzzle flip. And this right here is one of the challenges. When you reach up and grab that pistol, make sure you're high on the tang. This picture down below, this little curve you see at the back side of this pistol is what's called a tang, and you got to make sure you're high on that tang when you go to shoot the pistol, or it's going to allow it to mush. Position your dominant hand high on the backstrap and keep your grip high as possible to reduce recoil and muzzle flip. Very good. That's a nice grip there. Good way to go, Jake. All right. So we always talk about when you're picking a pistol up or putting a pistol down, we got to make sure we're disciplined on trigger control. And trigger control for us is one of those things that we here at the range always talk about. Make a pistol to pick up a pistol. If you just grab your hand, put it out in front of you, and make that pistol, and every time you pick the gun up or drop the gun or set it down or go to grab it, you're going to keep your finger off the trigger, and you maintaining this trigger discipline is more important than anything else today. If you're a really great shooter and you're excellent you're so great with everything, but you suck at safety, you suck. So we want to make sure that we work that discipline of trigger control as much as possible, keeping your finger off the trigger till you're ready to shoot, and always maintain trigger discipline is so important. Now, here's a little caveat to that, and this is one of the things I don't really I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's more challenging when someone's at the range and they are pointing the weapon down range and they're shooting and they engage the trigger and they take their finger off the trigger to set your sights up to engage the trigger again. And then you set your sights up and then you engage the trigger again. I understand the concept of that, and I appreciate them being trying to be as safe as possible. But the moment you take your finger off the trigger in a range situation, not home defense, not walking around with it, not anything else, I'm talking about at the range itself, you want to have a good cadence when you're engaging the trigger. And when you remove your trigger finger off the trigger between shots, you're restarting yourself, and it becomes a little more challenging to be disciplined at that point in time. So my recommendation is put 5 rounds in the weapon, shoot the 5 rounds, make sure you have a good solid cadence when you're engaging the trigger. I kind of give the students a 1, 2, 3. One is sticking your finger on the trigger. Two is applying pressure. Three is the weapon cutting. And then once that weapon cuts, we want to start back to one again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And at three, the weapon should be cutting and it's level. The gun goes to level. We level the pistol out and we engage it again. But if you're 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you start over again, right? So we're picking the gun up, finger off the trigger. Number one, we're putting our finger on the trigger. Number two, we're slowly pressing the trigger. Number three, the weapon fires. Then we take our finger off the trigger. Then we go back to doing it over and over and over again. And that's kind of one of those deals. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just think it helps you to get into a role if you keep your finger on the trigger when you're at the range and the weapon is loaded, pointed down range in a safe direction, if that makes sense. And that's I hope I explained that well enough. So maintaining a good trigger discipline is probably the real important thing. All right, so equal number 4 is equal amount of pressure in both hands. And I wanted to show you this because when I show you Jacob's grip, he's got 300, this one in the middle, he's got 360-degree skin around this pistol. When you have your thumb tucked, look at that bottom picture. Look how much skin's away from that gun. And you know what a firearm is? A firearm is a bully. Whatever you give the firearm, it's gonna take. So if you're not high on the tang, it's gonna wanna flip muzzle flip on you. If you're not controlling the weapon with a good solid grip, it's gonna run a roll in your hand, right or left or anything. Now, we have exaggerated a little bit of this grip that Jacob has this. I've never seen him have a gap like that, but if you look deep into that gap there, what's tucked in there is that thumb, and that thumb is blocking Jacob's hand from wrapping all the way around it. And if you have that grip where you tuck your thumb, this is one of the challenges of tucking a thumb is you're not getting a solid grip with your non-dominant hand. And keep in mind, guys, if you're left-handed and you're left eye dominant, you just switch all this stuff. We're fortunate enough that Jacob and I are right-handed and right eye dominant, and my oldest boy Johnny is right-handed, left eye dominant. So there's a little challenge for him once in a while, but he's figured it out. He shoots both ways. He's ambidextrous, and that's the way he does it. But if you can look at this grip, which one of these do you feel? Comment below. Which one of these do you think would give you the better grip? And if you're looking at the skin all the way around the gun, you are correct. 100%. 100%. All right, here we go. Make sure the thumbs are pointed towards the target, not cross over each other to avoid interference with the slide. Now, I can tell you, unless you're left-handed and you have to shoot the gun with your left hand on the slide, that becomes a little. The gun world is a right-handed world. Now, on this side of the weapon, on this side, not the other side, but on this side, those thumbs could be touching that slide, no issue. Now, you don't want any pressure with the thumbs. You understand? The thumbs are along for the ride. They're just there to be there. They're not doing anything for you. Where your grip is basically is in the hands, and obviously your trigger fingers engage in the trigger. But beyond that, the 3 fingers and the 4 fingers and the hands themselves pressing together is controlling it. Now, most men are going to use their pecs to control the weapon, where women's going to use a wrist and booty. We talked about that. But as you put the weapon driving it out like that, those thumbs can be on there. Now, when you have to grab this hand, you're left-handed, and you grab the gun left-handed. Your other thumb needs to watch this injector port when the other side, and you want to be below that. And I'm not sure if I got a picture of one of those or not, but I will. I'll try to identify one here in a second or two. But making sure your fingers are below that injector port is the key thing. Make sure your thumb's not in front of it, because when that casing comes out of there, it's going to want to come out of there, and you don't want your thumb getting in the way of it. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of um, uh, left-handed guns in the world. There's safety mechanisms and things like that, but the gun world is mostly right-handed world, which is easy for you lefties. You've been doing crap right-handed your whole life. It's simple and easy. The only thing I gotta teach a left-handed student really is to drop the magazine. And if you drop your magazine with your index, I mean, your pointer finger, no, your index finger, excuse me, you point index finger with your left hand and push the button with your left hand. You'll drop that magazine every time. Very simple, very easy. We did a video on that being left-handed. I did a whole video on shooting a gun one-handed because I had a class with a gentleman who had lost his arm. And he was right-handed. He lost his right arm and he wanted to get back to shooting. He said, "You think you could help me learn to shoot with my mechanical arm?" And he had a phone that would allow it to close and open and all that stuff like that. And we could adjust the power of it and things like that. The problem was it wasn't easy for us to get his finger in the trigger. So I just said, "Shoot, forget it, dude. We'll just shoot left-handed." "I can't shoot left-handed." "Sure you can." And we were able to get him to use his prosthetic to help him load the magazine. And on top of that, we were able to let him shoot the gun one-handed, left-handed, and he shot it well. So he just kind of, your mind will take over. And same thing here. When you get comfortable shooting, you lefties can do anything in the world. It's harder to get a right-handed student to shoot left-handed than it is a left-handed student to shoot right-handed. So if you have any comments or questions about how to get your magazine out or anything else like that with your left hand, we can do a video on that again. But I did do a video on that. Matter of fact, I did a video. I shot the gun left-handed. I loaded the magazine left-handed, and then I did a full video on doing it one-handed, left-handed, which was which was somewhat of a challenge, but I wanted to do it because I'm asking him to do it. I wanted to make sure I knew how to do it, and we just learned together, him and I, and it was pretty cool. I was kind of impressed on how easy he shot at that point. And by the way, guys, he was not shooting a 9 millimeter; he was shooting a 40 cal. And that 40 cal, I've already talked about how high performance that round is, but he physically was able to do it, and it worked out perfectly for him. I wish the mechanical thing would have worked. It was been pretty cool because it was easy to get it, but we just couldn't get that trigger finger in there without having to manipulate it too much. It just didn't work. So his prosthetic wasn't there yet for that to work for us, but it was still pretty cool. And there's videos on that. All right, let's hit the next one. Maintaining a constant grip pressure throughout shooting session will improve your accuracy 100% there. There's where I see most of the problems. Why people get away from why people shoot uh one up, one down, one right, one left is they're not getting consistent grip. Now, if you pay attention to what Jacob here, he's got his thumbs way out there. He's locked that wrist out. You lock that wrist out, you grab that bottom hand, that left hand itself, and Jacob here is minding his gap. If you look at the pistol itself and see where his trigger finger's on that trigger, there's a gap between his hand and that weapon. And that gap's going to allow us to have a consistent trigger engagement without physically touching the skin of your trigger finger onto that weapon. The moment your finger crawls all the way in there, or the more your skin touches that firearm, or the more you're going to manipulate the pistol to the left. And this is very common for people to travel with their trigger finger. They'll be consistent one and then the next, and then the third shot, their fingers going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in the trigger, and there becomes a risk. So if there's a video, I don't know, 6 months ago, we talked about mind your gap. This is what we're talking about. You want to make sure you're not gapping all the way into that gun or using the crease of your finger to engage a trigger. That'll cause a lot of it as well. So proper grip, maintaining consistent grip throughout your session. This is challenging for a lot of people. What tends to happen, and if you get to the point where you are shooting 5 rounds at a time, you can control 5 rounds. You can't control 15. And if you're out there shooting 15 rounds in a target, a paper plate, or whatever it is, how much control do you think you have after the 5th round? If I told you there's 17 rounds in a pistol, 6 through 17 are probably just there along for the ride. They're not going to be there where you need. There's first 5 the most important in the magazine to begin with. Consistently concentrating on a 5-string shot on a regular basis will improve your accuracy more than anything else, because at that point in time, you're able to control the weapon through the 5. Ladies, one of the challenges for you guys is you're not using your pecs like the guys are. You can't shittily hold the gun like the guys can. Usually, you need to hold your back muscles and your in your booty and get that gun out. Drive that gun out. You want to feel what this feels like. Take your dominant hand and push it out in front of you. Go ahead, do it. Take your dominant hand and push it out. And now take your non-dominant hand and pull back. You're pushing your dominant hand into your non-dominant hand, and you'll feel your back muscles start to fire. And when those back muscles start to fire, and you lean, you get your nose over your toes, that allows that gun to stay as level as possible. Last time you went to the range, how accurate were you and how much control do you think you had? If you try this push and pull, now listen, there, ladies, there is a full playlist of all kinds of women's videos on there of my daughter-in-law, my future daughter-in-law, Hillary. I did a full class with her, and she shot wonderful that night. We have another. We did a full training class with another young lady. We've done a bunch of stuff, and all those are in there. And you watch a couple of those, it'll help you tremendously become more proficient. You know what? Shooting a pistol's never been complicated. It's just complex, and there's a few little things you got to do. And once you get them, and once it makes sense to you, then it becomes easier and easier and easier. All right. So maintaining a constant grip, pressure throughout. That's the key thing. A lot of times, what you see women do is they'll put 15 rounds in a gun and they're trying to drive with their back muscles and they know all the secrets, but they can't control that all the way through and they begin to lose that pressure. And once you lose that pressure, your accuracy is going to be really weighed at that point in time. And then when you're talking about good habits and bad habits, we all know that bad habits pick up very quickly. Good habits take time, discipline. And the more you engage this trigger, you would need to make sure that we're making the best muscle memory we can and not doing anything that's going to cause us to to trip up or hurdle up because we want to be consistent. All right. So we talked about dry fire many times before, but anything we do when it comes to dry firing, it's got to be proper grip. Practicing dry fire with a perfect grip without live ammo, focus on proper hand placement and trigger pressure as well as control. This is one of those things that the more time you spend focusing through that weapon, make sure it's over your dominant eye and getting that good grip. I have my pecs firing here right now. I've got the gun over my dominant eye. I'm looking through the weapon and I'm making sure that my grip is decent enough that I control it. I always have these short little thumbs, anyways, but for me, I'm able to control the weapon pretty well without putting too much pressure on there. And where the real challenge of most people are is not understanding how to control it with the grip itself. So number 7 would be practicing your dry fire grips. That dry firing is such a thing that people don't think it helps very much, but it sure does. It gives you the ability to understand how much pressure you need to put on that weapon, trigger wise, to make the weapon cut. If you have a firearm in your hand, you should not have to guess that the weapon's going to fire, but you should not know the weapon's going to fire, if that makes sense. If I'm applying pressure to the trigger in a slow, consistent press back or trigger travel, then the weapon cuts, I'm not going to manipulate that pistol more than if I pull the trigger, then I pull the guns down. I've done many, many of our videos called The Shot Doctor. That's one of my personas. My son put me in a lab coat and a stethoscope. I can't believe he can say that word. And he did a thumbnail of me doing the shot doctor. And I take people's targets and identify what I think they're doing wrong on a regular basis. And if you look at your target's going to tell you what you're doing wrong. If you've got the weapon out in front of you and you're aiming in the center of that target and they're impacting low, then guess what you're doing? You're pulling the trigger. Now, pulling the trigger makes a lot of difference, but if that gun's at any angle, it can't be at an angle. It's got to be level. A level pistol shoots level. And a lot of times the grip helps us keep the gun level. And we need to really, really focus on these foundation points, right? Our grip, our stance, our trigger control, our sight picture, our sight alignment. We could spend weeks and weeks and weeks talking about all this stuff, but it's a manipulation of all of them together that makes you a better person, better shooter, more accurate with a pistol than it is just one thing. All right, let's go to the next one. You know what? I tell everybody times two thumbs forward, you thumb forward grip, and I get so much bullshit from the guys, the guys on YouTube that tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm a blowhard, I'm a fud, all this stuff like that. But realistically, if you put proper grip on any YouTube video, every one of them's got the same thing as here. But I don't want you to think that you have to physically. There is a grip that's going to work for you, and as long as you can maintain a perfect or an accurate or be accurate with a pistol, you can modify all these grips all you want as long as they work for you. But if they're not working for you, or you're not able to control it the whole time, then maybe you need to experiment with a couple different styles, maybe different grip styles, and find something that's going to work best for you. Yeah, oh, I could tell you after teaching a crap load of people since 2013, this is the grip that I have got people to do. The NRA kind of laid this grip out to everybody many years ago. The United States government uses this grip. Most of the sheriff's department uses this grip. It is something that's going to give you the best control you can. They call it a couple different things: thumb forward grip, combat grip. What it really is when we talk about experimenting, it's how much pressure or not pressure when you watch these guys on YouTube, like myself, I don't put a ton of pressure on a weapon. I don't. I have a little bit of mass, so when I go to run this gun, my kids, the students say the gun doesn't move at all. I'm not driving crazy with the weapon, but when I have a student here for the very first time shooting a pistol, I want them to drive that weapon as hard as they can. I want them see them shaking at the end. We can always back it off at that point in time. But if we don't let them see a proper grip to begin with and let them see that the weapon should not muzzle flip or not go up and not flop all over, then it becomes something that they have to identify the grip that's going to work for them. And somewhere between what I'm giving them and what they bring to the table, it's going to be the grip that's going to be. So experiment with different grip styles and stance to find the that works best for you. Because a lot of guys want to stand with one foot back and one foot forward, and that is not a good stable stance. Now, many years United States, the cops, all the people were standing in that weaver stance because it was an easier way to put the gun over the dominant eye. You had your dominant hand out, you had one foot back, but it did not give you full protection if you're wearing a bulletproof vest. Because if you have your sides of your body open, there's no bulletproof there. So when you wear a bulletproof vest from your back to your front, those side panels don't really stop a bullet. So you want to have your 2 feet shoulder width apart, bouncing on your knees, and it allows you to move right, left, forward, and backwards. But you can have that right foot, if you're right handed, canted back maybe a little 6, maybe 3 or 4 inches less than your front hand. I mean, your left foot. You could do that. But the moment you have your 1 foot back and 1 foot forward, you're going to put yourself in a position where a lot of people do that because they think it's going to help me be stable. But if you've got all your weight shifted to one side when that weapon rolls, it causes more rolling backwards. When your feet shoulder width apart and you have your feet shoulder width apart and you're leaning forward just a little bit to transfer the weight to your toes, then you feel when the gun goes or the recoil happens that you're soaking up the recoil a little bit more than someone who's standing on their heels and letting a gun fire. At that point in time, the gun's going to tip you back a little bit. And this is a lot of that when it happens for women because women are trying to do everything they can and they're not using their pec muscles to control the weapon. They're using their hands to try to control the weapon, and this becomes a challenge. Yesterday, we had a young lady in here. I've seen her a couple times, and I was watching her shoot through the cameras, and she just was not. She was almost there, but not there. And I went back there and I gave her the drill. I put the gun in her hand, I had her hold on to it, I lifted on the front of the weapon and had her apply pressure as much as she could. And then within 10 minutes of her back there, she came back up and said, "That changed my whole thing, man." My accuracies were on target at that point in time. And those are the little tiny things, and her grip was perfect, and her stance was good. She wasn't getting rocked back when she shot the 9mm now, because she had her feet shuttle width apart underneath her body, and she transferred her weight to her toes and not in the full foot. And that becomes a lot of times you step 1 foot back, you're not transferring that weight the way you think you're doing. You're having the full foot with the transfer. So to give you an idea what I'm talking about, what I want you to do is when you get an opportunity, is to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Make sure they're about shoulder width apart. And what I want you to do is that I want to lift your heels just enough to get your heels off the ground, but you not fall forward, and then just tip your nose just a little bit forward. At that point in time, that's the balance we want when we shoot a pistol. So we always talk about, I give it an idea of being at the beach with no shoes on and digging your toes in the sand. If you dig the toes in the sand and lift your heels, that's what we're looking for. That's the feeling. Getting that nose over the toes and just controlling it. It'll allow us to keep that recoil management to a minimum. All right. Seek professional training. This is probably the thing you should do very first before you go anything else. But, obviously, we are a firearms trainer. This is what we do for a living. We work, every class we start with, it's grip, it's stance, it's trigger control, it's sight picture, it's sight alignment. And we want to make sure that we're starting them off with the greatest foundation you can. If you think about building a house, ladies and gentlemen, they don't do roof first. They got to build that foundation. They got to scrape that ground. They got to lay the tie beam. They got to do all that stuff, but they can't do any of that stuff without having a good foundation first. And firearms instructors are designed to give you all this stuff in a mode that you can consume it your way. Now, when I do a training class, and you can watch some of those training classes because I have a full line of videos from our website. It's just me doing training classes. You're watching the class, like the students here in the class, you're watching the class. And I think it was called Watch Me Work or whatever it was. But, it's kind of cool because that concept gives you an idea of what we talk about in class. Now, if you're not in our area, which we just did the comments here a few minutes ago, and there are people not from here, they're not from Cape Coral. Obviously, if you're in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Southwest Florida area, I've got guys coming all from Marco Island. I've got people coming from the Glades. I've got people coming from Port Charlotte, Pine Island, Vermont. Jim and them came from Vermont. But I would love to teach you. But if you're looking for a good quality instructor, there are a couple places you can go. You can go to the NRA's website. At the NRA's website, you can put your actual zip code in, and they're going to give you NRA instructors phone numbers that you can contact. Now, I would recommend that you contact them. I would recommend that if they have a website, look at their website and look at their reviews. And if you think it's going to click for you, get there, get that one, do that, right? But if you don't think that's going to work for you, find the nearest gun range. Most of the gun ranges in town hire instructors that are qualified to do that. Now, if you don't have the NRA or you don't want to use the NRA, you can always use United States Concealed Carry Association. I'm a member of the United States Concealed Carry Association. I'm a certified instructor for them. Jacob is a certified instructor for him. Heidi's a certified instructor for him. Uh, uh, Johnny is a certified instructor. Natasha, one of our secondary people that help us here at the range, she's certified with them, and you can get a certified instructor by just putting names in your zip code as well. And they teach us a lot of this stuff that we kind of take what we give them, and they have some platform things they want us to kind of work their numbers in. But these are ways you can do it. But getting professional training to receive personal feedback and guidance on improving your grip and your whole shooting fundamentals is going to be so important. And it would be highly recommended, probably to do this before you got to the range. But a lot of people think firearms instruction is expensive. I want you to think about this. Let's look at a bag of 9 millimeter. I don't know every place in the world, but I'll just give you my bag of 9 millimeter. I have a bag of 9 millimeter. It's 100 rounds, costs 28.99. So that's 28 cents a round. All right. Now, I want you to think about last time you went to the range. And I want you to tell me where you think your accuracy was. Would you say if those 100 rounds, do you think that you kept them all in a 6-inch circle at 21 feet, which is 7 yards? And if I told you that the 100 rounds, would you consider yourself 75% accurate? That means 75 bullets stayed in that 6-inch circle at the 21 foot or tighter, or would you be less? And what if I told you a firearms instructor with proper training could keep you above 75 to 80% on every bag? That means 80% of the bullets that shot out of that bag are going exactly where you want them to in only a few pulls versus 50% or 60% or 30% and blaming the gun every week, right? And then after you've done that 5, 10, 15 bags and picking up all those bad habits, and then you want to go to a firearms instructor and say, "Can you fix me? Can you help me?" Now I've got to break all those bad habits and try to put in all the good habits versus spending money on an instructor to get you started to begin with. Now, us here, we always, because we have multiple income streams, we have multiple things. One of our basic pistol classes here, guys, is only $99.99, which is, pretty cheap for what you get private class. If you don't own pistols, we give you the pistols. We let you try the pistols. If you haven't tried a couple of the pistols, some of those pistols are the top quality pistols on the market. Now, we don't carry everything. We don't carry every stock product. We're not a gun store. I wouldn't consider us a gun range. We're a training facility, but everything we have here is shootable. So when that student comes in and want to shoot a Smith and Wesson, or they want to shoot a Sig, or they want to shoot a Glock, we're going to have it. We're going to give them our opinion, and you're going to be able to tell what you like before you even take it home. You know how many people buy guns and never shot them? I've told you this multiple times where people are buying pistols because somebody told them that Glock 19 is the best carry gun in the world. That Glock 19 is the worst carry gun in the world. Now it's carried, but for somebody who is 105 pounds, a woman putting a four inch pistol and trying to carry it, it's just not going to happen. It's too big of a gun. Now, is a Glock 19 a great pistol with the ability to pick something up smaller down the road when you're ready? Yeah, great, beautiful. The problem with Glocks is their trigger is kind of a stiff trigger, and majority of the women and majority of the elderly people tend to can't rack a Glock very well or can't load the magazines very well. The Smith and Wessons put out a lot of products now that are very easy and very smooth and everything else like that. Get the right instructor, get the right place, go the right place. You're going to be able to do all that stuff prior to picking the right gun. I know it's challenging to go. Most places in town won't let you shoot unless you have a gun, and you can't get a gun if you don't know how to shoot a gun. So it's a catch 22. I get it. But keep in mind that our instructors' licenses cost us money. Our insurance cost us money. And when you've got people who want to come learn, but just want to come to the range and rent a gun to learn, that's probably not the best thing. When you want to buy a motorcycle in Florida, you got to take a motorcycle endorsement. You got to take a class. You can't go buy a motorcycle without having your motorcycle endorsement because you can't get your license at that point in time. They don't do that with pistols in Florida. In a lot of places, they don't do that. So you got to get your head around this. These are not hard or complicated, but there are some learning curves that you got to make sure you do. And that's what a trained professional will do for you. Not saying you have to hire an instructor. You may have a brother in law, you may have a sister or brother or whatever that can work you through it. Maybe they've taken a class or two, but when you put the class underneath you and you feel it and you're in it truly makes a difference. And you can see it. I can physically see it. I can feel it when I'm in a range and watch a student gradually become better and better and better and better. And that's what we want. That's what we want. That's the whole idea of this thing. All right. So seek professional training. And of course, I had a picture of me. Yeah. Remember, always prioritize safety. The four safety rules: keep the weapon, treat the weapon if it's always loaded. Keep your finger off the trigger till you're ready to fire. Never point the weapon at anything you love or don't want to destroy, and always keep the weapon pointing in a safe direction. Continuously practicing and refining your handgun grip and your technique. Your targets are going to tell you what you're doing wrong. If you're honest with yourself, this is why the single dot drill is a great drill, and we sometimes they call it single dot drill. Sometimes they'll call it a bullet drill, where you take a white piece of paper and you shoot a bullet into the white piece of paper, and you're aiming at a spot on that white piece of paper. And if you impact that spot or close to that spot when you've got that gun level and you engage that trigger properly, but if you're aiming at that spot and that bullet impacts 6 inches low, well, you pulled the trigger at that point in time. And there becomes the challenge. We need to get to a point where that pull could have been a grip issue. That pull could have been a gapping issue. That could have been a lot of different stuff. Most of the time, you're mixing a couple different things that's causing it to impact low. Majority of the stuff that impacts low is because you're pulling the trigger or you're looking over top of the pistol and not looking through the pistol. Impacting high, like I told you before with the guy this morning, is focusing on that front post only, not looking through your back sights, and maybe pointing in the center of the a dot and not doing the 6 o'clock hole will cause some high impacts as well. You can't have that front post, what we call shark finning, where the front post is higher than the back post. There becomes a real challenge for you. Uh, Continuously practice refining your handgun grip and technique. Keep in mind, handgun grip techniques work differently for each pistol because how the pistol fits in your hand. You could shoot really well with a Glock and really crappy with a Smith, and they're not much difference in the two, but because the way the gun fits in your hand, it just does not feel. For me, I'm a Smith and Wesson man. I like Smiths, all those Smith products. Glocks tend to give me a thumb bump. I don't know what it's about. I hold the gun and it dips my finger and it hits me every time and bumps me every time. So I don't really like the Glock itself, but I get clock I get called Glock Boy all the time. So when you watch most of my videos, you'll see me doing. I'm shooting a ton of different pistols because it's part of the whole thing. But we do a lot of the Smith and Wesson Equalizer, the Smith and Wesson Shield Pluses. We do the Glock 43Xs, and each one of those grips are a little different, and the angle of the grip is a little different, and it causes us to shoot a little bit different each one. So make sure when you're practicing your grip and you have three different pistols, don't assume that the grip you're going to have for this weapon is going to work for that weapon. All right. Okay. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more tips and tricks on mastering the basics of shooting. As I told you guys many times before, we started this many years ago Educate, motivate, and entertain. If you found any of that in any of these videos, please do not leave tonight without making sure you subscribe, like wherever you are, if you're on YouTube or one of my other things, and make sure you follow us as much as you can. We have our Facebook pages, we have our YouTube channel, we have our TikTok, we have Instagram. Now we're on Spotify, all the major podcasts. I want to say bipod all the time. I don't know why I do that. So let's get out of this and go back to the main screen. There I am. So from there, let's get in, exit the full screen and get to some comments if we can. All right. All right. So comments are below. Here we go. Okay, Natasha and Natasha's mom, thank you very much tonight for showing. We appreciate you every week. Ralph, Brazil, that's beautiful, bud. I hope it's beautiful there. I've never been. I would love to go. Uh, Papa Weasel, thank you very much for being here. So, how is your grip? Which grip do you have? Is there any questions we could talk about there before we get out of here tonight? Because tonight is Tuesday night taco, and Miss Johnson's at home right now, cooking up that taco meat, or she should be. Maybe. I hope. You never know. Uh, Greeting from Virginia. Hello, buddy. Um, Wolverine is what he calls himself. Very cool. There it is. Greetings. Thank you. Greetings, buddy. I'm glad you're here. First time being on the live, buddy. Thank you very much. 701. Well, it's been a great evening tonight. I'm really, I can't believe it's been an hour. Did I talk that long? I must have gambled on, gambled on, gambled on. What do you think of a grip sleeve? I have a big hand and sometimes find Glocks a little small. Yeah, man, that'll work. There's a lot of stuff. The only thing I don't like about some of the grip sleeves is that they cause premature sweating. So if you're going to get a grip sleeve, you want to make sure. A lot of times when you put those grip sleeves on, the trick is liquid soap. And once you've put that on, it can go on and you can move it around a little bit. But Ralph, it all has to do with how it feels to you, buddy. That extra little grip. Back in the day when the Gen 3s and the Gen 4s and guys with big hands, they actually physically, when the Glock family, those finger grooves didn't work for guys with big hands. Big hand guys hated those guns because that grip was not where it needed to be, kind of deal. But there are a lot of manufacturers that make grip sleeves that works for. I don't see a problem in it. If it makes you more accurate and helps you tremendously, I would really, really recommend you try it. I wouldn't spend a ton of money on them to make sure that if they don't work, then it becomes something else. But definitely, Ralph, if you had an opportunity, I'd like to know which pistol you're shooting. There might be a pistol you can pick. Are you talking a Glock? Are you talking a Glock that you're using? And is it Glock 19? Is it Glock 17? Or is it's one of the smaller ones? Because Ralph, that'll make a big difference on. Oh yeah, the 34 Gen 5. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's not. Yeah. So the Gen 5s are no finger grooves at all. So yeah, that would be the one challenge thing there is to make sure that you make sure that you don't find one of those grips that's going to give you a finger groove at all. Because you probably being a big guy who likes the full grip there. That's an awesome question. Thank you, Ralph, very much, buddy. How long you been shooting that 34? You've had it a long time? Let's see if he's still commenting. Well, we've had a great night. We had 14 people consistently all night. That's pretty awesome for me. Now we are going to take this live and we're going to make it a podcast, make it an audio only situation. and it's going to be put on our podcast as well. And you can always watch the podcast through our YouTube channel. But if you are downloading podcasts from anywhere else, you can physically 18 months. Beautiful, beautiful. That's awesome, dude. Well, I'm glad you're here. Ralph, is this the first time being on the watching the show, or have you been here before? And where are you out of, Ralph? Yeah. So let's go up top here and say goodbye to everybody tonight. Natasha's mom. I hope you guys are doing wonderful. Thank you very much. We had a guy comment earlier about when it starts, and it starts every Tuesday night. The live is every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, rain or shine, and we have different topics and different things that we talk about here in these lives we're doing. And then last 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, YouTube opened up the podcast thing. So we took our live playlist and made it a podcast, but it's a podcast audio, not a real podcast, because audio is more video formed. Now, the YouTube podcast link allows you to watch the podcast or download the podcast or download the video. Where if you use the YouTube Music subscription button, but if you want to use Shopify or iHeart or any of those other, everything else will be downloadable audio. But there's a picture of us and everything else like that. We'd love to have you as well. I'm hoping this. It seems to be people are liking it because we're getting a lot of downloads from it. So kind of cool. I didn't know if it was going to fly the way we wanted to. Oh, Brazil. Ralph's from Brazil. Beautiful. Okay. Natasha, Ralph, Tom from New Hampshire. Thanks for watching, from Tom. Appreciate you very much, buddy. Gary from Northern Florida. Chris, Papa Weasel, Wolverine, Ralph. Many things, great advice. All right, so as we said, we're over an hour and 8 minutes. That's kind of what I'm trying to put these at 8. That way, that at 1 hour, it try to makes it easy for me. Let me go ahead and punch out this music for me. Close it out. Until next week, guys, God bless you guys. I love you very much. Thank you for your support. I will tell you, we just went over 28,000 subscribers. And for a small mom and pop, 2 years ago, we started this thing, we had 37 subscribers. And now we're at 28,000. We're getting about 15,000 views a month, which is, I can't even believe that at all. We were doing a lot of shorts. Now we're doing these lives. We're going to pull these lives, and then we're going to do the the podcast and a lot of different stuff. But we're doing all this stuff for you. So if you find or need us in any way possible, or you having a problem at the range, you can always send us some information, and we'd love to put something together for you. And there is no, we want to do things to help our students. Until next time, guys, God bless, be safe, and remember, you are your first line of defense. I love you guys very much, and we'll see you next week, God willing.